Hi, I've just had another birthday, and there's nothing more focusing of the mind than the flow of time. So when you go north of 50, and I've hit north of 50 by a few years now, you start to think more and more of what I call legacy issues, what you're leaving behind, what difference would your life have made? And I start to think about what we're going to leave to the next generation, my children, your children, people who are coming up behind us. So I was thinking how I could make an addition, a valuable addition to the whole uh, Black History Month program, and also all those ideas around Black Lives Matter. And I thought I'd come up with some ideas or some tips and tricks about how we could better improve the whole diversity and inclusion space. First thing that comes to mind is that I think the moral compass of most people I know in the United Kingdom is quite finely calibrated to the extent that we all know what good looks like. This has two impacts. One, everybody hates being called a racist. But there is a flip side to that, which makes me also observe that people hate being called racist more than they hate racism itself. In fact, if people hated racism as much as they hated being called racist, our D&I problems would evaporate, because the dislike of being called racist is so profound. It is experienced in such a visceral way that people will do anything to avoid that situation. And that's the genesis, that's the origin of these. I think there are three tips that I'd like to share. First of all, people need to listen to people who don't look like themselves. When I say listen, I don't mean just listen. I mean listen and hear what they're trying to say. Because the greatest obstacle to giving people equal opportunity, to enable their output in the workspace, in social life, in personal relationships, people need to have the space to talk. For me, when it comes to communication, which is my business, there is only one caveat. Thou shalt not cause others to hate others, and thou shalt not incite hatred. That's all. So long as you're respecting people's lives, someone else's lived experience is their lived experience. It's not something that they read in a book. It's something that they're likely experiencing on a day-to-day basis, whether they're white, they're black, they're Asian, they're male, they're female. It's their lived experience, and nobody can tell them that it is otherwise. And because our society is optimized for white males at the top, white females second, and all others after that, our society is created very much in their image. And what's normal for them is normalized for everybody. But everybody else's experience is completely different. That's why it's important that if you want to create a space in which your staff who don't look like you are able to do their best work, you have to be able to listen to what they say and hear what they say. We're talking about dialogue here. Do you know the most important thing about dialogue is that having really good dialogue actually requires quite a lot of maturity, because you need to be prepared to hear things that don't fit your picture of what the world should be. It is what it is. So that's the first thing. Giving people the space to speak, the space to be heard, and by no means create And there are lots of ways of doing this. I mean, I work in communications, I know how that works. Um, we can create social censorship, which is as rigid as the laws that govern film censorship, as the laws that govern your and my life. They're just social, they're unwritten, they're unspoken, but they're there. First tip, let's remove all of that. Second thing, my lived experience has been one of, it actually makes me feel quite resentful at times, patronisation. Now, this is a kind of woolly thing, the kind of jokes we tell. The kind of joke you tell somebody depends on who you're telling the joke to. You can crack certain types of jokes with certain types of people, and you can't make those jokes appropriately with other people. You wouldn't talk to a 21-year-old the way you talk to a 7-year-old. Not that one is better than the other. They're just very, very, very different stages of life. So patronizing people means that you're infringing people's space. You're assuming a relationship which doesn't exist. All relationships have to be built from the ground up. And it's been my lived experience that often people thinking that they're wanting to be friendly overshoot their boundaries and so on and so forth. Now, I've got to tell you that most people of African origin, people who look like me, are very cautious about infringing people's boundaries. They learn this from a very early age. But if the society is built in your image and is run according to your memes and your peccadillos and your fancies, it's very easy to think that you can do what you like. This does not change any of the facts that this is England. Well, I live in England. There's also Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, the other places. But this is Britain, and Britain has a certain culture. But that is never an excuse to overstep one's boundaries with other people. It's called respect for life. The third thing I'd say is about stereotypes. And in that regard, in the last, 20, 25 years, I've been kind of in executive positions. And the further you go, the more you're looking after other people, guiding them, leading them. And one of the shockers of my experience of life in the UK, circa 2020, is that we are yet to create the stereotype of the black executive. There are lots of stereotypes. We've got stereotypes of white executives. We have stereotypes of brown executives. But the stereotype of the black executive is something that's yet to be essayed. And it comes across in lots of little ways. Look, I've been in situations where interns have treated or approached me as if I was the company help. These are people who work for my company. You know, these are people whose effectively my efforts go to paying their wages. So that is something that is learned over the years. If every boss you see looks white, everybody understands that white people can be bosses. But if 1 in a million bosses you see are black, it's very difficult to believe that he's not a unicorn or something weird from planet Zog, but at any rate, he's definitely an anomaly. Meanwhile, we know these people exist, but we don't project those images. So we need to be careful of the stereotypes we bring to work and how we then try and make people fit those stereotypes. There are so many other stereotypes that go about. Britain's a very class stratified society. Okay, I sound maybe unusual as a black person, speaking the way I do. It's not unusual at all. Everybody who had my life experience sounds like that. It's perfectly normal. However, people can look at it and think, that doesn't quite fit the stereotype. And let me tell you, the funniest thing is when I walk into a room and I open my mouth, I can see the cognitive dissonance on people's faces. At first, it used to worry me. It doesn't worry me anymore. It's my lived experience. It's what happens. But I'm just thinking what impact these enforcing these completely randomly created social stereotypes have on younger people who are on the way to start their careers, how it affects their self-esteem, their self-confidence, their creativity, their will to come to work and give 115%. It's very important to have the right stereotypes. So, if nothing else, the fundamental principle of diversity and inclusion is respect for life. This respect for life needs to be extended beyond a life that doesn't necessarily look like yours, whether it's by gender, whether it's by ethnicity, whether it's by color, whether it's by body type, whether it's by sexual orientation. It's all about respect for that life. And the way we're raised, the environments we grow up in, make a huge impact in even deciding that this kind of life deserves respect. Over the years, women, Emmeline Pankhurst and co, fought the good fight. It's taken them decades for women first to get the vote, for women to actually come to work and be who they are without being patronized, without being sexually harassed, and so on. And the battle continues to this day. But when it comes to the arena of race, I think we're only just starting. Though people who look like me have been connected to people who look like the majority of the society since 1441, it was an unhappy encounter because it led to lots of people being taken on a long trip against their wishes. But that's where we are. Let's cut the silence, enable people to speak, and when they speak, let's listen to them. Let's not patronize people. Let's not impose stereotypes which have got nothing to do with the actual intrinsic merit and value of the individual you're dealing with. So if this helps in any way, shed some light on this thing, by all means, pop any questions you have underneath this video. It's the first one I'm doing for LinkedIn, actually. So, and I'm putting it here because there are people who lead organizations and so on. And it's time we made a difference. It's, things have got to change. Have a great Black History Month and have a great rest of the year and stay safe from that awful virus. Thank you very much.